The sky above Zithra was alive with colors that humans had never seen before. Glowing rivers snaked through crystal forests, reflecting the pale light of two moons. Floating rocks hovered in the air, as if held by invisible hands, and the soft hum of the energy crystals filled the atmosphere. To any traveler, Zithra was a world of wonders, but to the small group of alien explorers walking cautiously through the crystal forest, it was a place full of danger. The group moved carefully, their long, elegant limbs stepping lightly on the glowing ground. They were the Zelari, a species known for their beauty, intelligence, and precision. Each of them was trained in science, combat, and survival, though they had rarely faced real danger. Their leader, Lyra, walked at the front, her violet eyes scanning the landscape. "We need to reach the northern ridge before the energy storm," Lyra said, her voice soft but commanding. Her companions nodded silently, trusting her judgment. The ridge was said to hold the rarest crystal deposits in the forest. For centuries, the Zelari had studied these crystals, hoping to unlock their secrets. Lyra bent down and examined a glowing crystal on the forest floor. "These are older than any recorded history," she murmured. Her fingers traced the patterns in the crystal, feeling the vibrations of energy flowing through it. Her companions, Sierra and Kale, whispered excitedly among themselves. They were scientists, curious and careful, yet unaware of the danger creeping behind the shimmering trees. From the shadows, a low growl echoed through the forest. At first, it sounded like the wind, but the aliens stiffened. Their eyes, trained to detect movement, caught the faint shimmer of a creature lurking in the distance. Its body was massive, muscular, covered in scales that reflected the moonlight. Its eyes glowed red with hunger. "The Vorathi," Sierra whispered. Lyra's eyes narrowed. "Stay calm, don't panic, we can outsmart them." But the Vorathi were not ordinary predators. They were terrifying hunters, designed by evolution to be unstoppable in their environment. Their energy-based weapons, emitted from their claws and tails, could disable technology in seconds. The Zelari, despite their advanced gadgets, were vulnerable. The first attack came without warning. One Vorathi leapt from the shadows, its claws crackling with energy. Kale tried to activate his energy shield, but the creature's attack overloaded the device. Sparks flew, and he was thrown backward. Sierra screamed as another Vorathi advanced. The alien girls were skilled, but they were unprepared for such ferocity. Lyra drew her blade, a tool of crystal and energy, and charged at the Vorathi. She struck quickly, but the creature was fast. Its tail swept through the air, knocking her to the ground. The Zelari technology that had always been reliable suddenly failed against the Vorathi's strange energy. Panic began to rise. It was then that a new presence appeared, a figure moving swiftly and confidently through the glowing forest. His armor was sleek but practical, his movements precise and calm. He carried no strange alien weapons, only what looked like simple firearms and tools, yet his presence immediately changed the battle. The human soldier, though the Zelari had never seen his kind before, moved with a purpose that stunned them. He assessed the Vorathi quickly, calculating their movements, weaknesses, and attack patterns. With sharp, decisive actions, he disabled one Vorathi, dodged another, and used the environment to his advantage. A falling crystal crushed one of the creatures, and he kicked another into a shallow river, where its claws fizzled harmlessly against the water's energy field. The Zelari froze in awe. "What is that?" Sierra whispered, her voice trembling. Lyra, even in the middle of fighting, couldn't take her eyes off him. He was human. Her knowledge of the universe included legends of humanity, but she had never seen one. Yet here he was, facing death with courage and precision that rivaled anything the Zelari could do. "Follow my lead," the human shouted, his voice firm but not loud. He dodged a Vorathi strike and rolled behind a floating rock. "Stay close," the Zelari hesitated, then instinctively obeyed. They watched as the human moved almost like a dance, dodging, attacking, and using the terrain as a weapon. Sierra noticed how he didn't rely on gadgets. His skill came from instinct, training, and something deeper, courage. The Vorathi, confused by this unexpected opponent, hesitated. The human exploited their hesitation, leading them into a trap he had set moments before. A chain of glowing crystals fell, creating a barrier and separating the predators. Then with perfect timing he fired, disabling their energy weapons. One by one, the Vorathi were neutralized or forced to retreat. When the last creature fled into the forest shadows, the human turned to the aliens. "Are you all okay?" he asked, his tone calm but alert. Lyra stepped forward, her violet eyes wide with amazement. I have never seen anything like you. What are you?" "I'm human," he replied simply. He didn't elaborate as there was little time. "We need to move before more of them arrive. This area is dangerous." The Zelari followed him, still trying to comprehend what they had just witnessed. Sierra glanced at him, awe in her gaze. "All this time we thought humans were weak and primitive, but you are incredible." The human shrugged. "We survive because we adapt, that's all." As they moved deeper into the forest, Lyra studied him closely. His calm under pressure, his clever strategies, and his physical skill were unlike anything she had seen among her own species, or any other. She realized that humans, despite appearing fragile, had an inner strength that could not be measured by technology or elegance alone. The group eventually reached a small clearing, safe for the moment. The moonlight reflected on the glowing crystals around them, creating a serene and magical atmosphere. The Zelari took a moment to catch their breath, while the humans scanned the surroundings, alert for any signs of the Vorathi returning. Sierra broke the silence. "Why did you help us? You don't even know us." The human looked at her, then at Lyra. "Because someone had to, because it's the right thing to do." Lyra felt a strange warmth in her chest, a feeling she had rarely experienced. Humans were mysterious, unpredictable, and yet somehow noble. They were not the strongest physically, nor the most technologically advanced, yet they could change the course of events with courage, intelligence, and willpower. Night deepened, and the forest around them seemed alive with unseen energy. Strange sounds echoed from the distance, but the human remained calm, always watching, always thinking. The Zelari, though still nervous, began to trust him. They realized that this single human soldier had not only saved their lives, but had also opened their eyes to a new understanding of the universe. For the first time in their lives, they saw a being who could face danger without fear, who could fight without arrogance, and who could inspire admiration through simple, unyielding courage. Lyra spoke quietly, almost to herself. "Perhaps humanity is stronger than we ever imagined." The human glanced at her, a small smile on his face. "We're full of surprises." And with that, the group set out again, deeper into the crystal forest, unaware of the greater dangers that awaited them. The human led the way and the Zelari followed, now not just as survivors but as students of a new, extraordinary kind of strength. The night was long, the forest vast, and the danger far from over. But for the first time, the Zelari felt hope. And all of it was because of a single human soldier, whose courage and skill had proven that even the smallest species could make the biggest difference. The forest of Zithra was quiet now, but the air still shimmered with tension. The Zelari had survived the first attack, thanks to the human soldier, but danger was never far. Lyra, Sierra, and Kale followed the human carefully, keeping their senses sharp. Every shadow seemed like it could hide a Vorathi. The human, who introduced himself simply as Captain John, moved confidently. Unlike the Zelari, he didn't rely on the glowing crystals or advanced alien technology. He studied the environment, reading every sound, every movement, and every reflection of light in the crystal forest. "You can't just wait for danger to strike," John said, walking ahead. "You have to predict it. You have to be ready before it even happens." Lyra frowned. We are trained explorers. We can handle danger. John glanced at her with a small smile. And you handled it well before I came. Not really. Sometimes training is not enough. You need instinct, speed, and courage, and humans have a lot of that. Sierra tilted her head. Humans are clever, John laughed softly. We try to be. They reached a small plateau overlooking a crystal river. It was a safe spot to rest, but the human's instincts kept him alert. The Vorathi were clever and they would return. John turned to the Zelari girls. I need to teach you something, he said. Not just how to fight, but how to think when the enemy is faster or stronger than you. Lyra hesitated. You want to train us? Yes, survival is not about strength alone, it's about strategy. The girls exchanged glances, uncertain. They had always relied on their technology and elegance, not brute strength or improvisation. Yet they had already seen what John could do. They nodded silently, trusting him. John began with simple exercises. He showed them how to move quietly without alerting predators. He demonstrated how to use the forest itself as a weapon. A fallen crystal could block a path, a glowing river could create a distraction, even a shadow could hide a trap. Don't just react, he said. Predict, anticipate. And never forget that your mind is as powerful as your tools. Kale tried to mimic John's movements but stumbled over a small rock. John laughed, but not mockingly. It's okay. Mistakes are how you learn. Keep your eyes open and trust your instincts. Hours passed as the Zelari practiced. They began to understand John's methods, realizing that his approach was not just about fighting. It was about awareness, clever thinking, and courage under pressure. As night fell, the forest seemed to come alive again. Strange sounds echoed through the trees and the glowing crystals created eerie reflections on the ground. John motioned for the group to hide. The Vorathi are hunting, he whispered. I can feel them. Lyra's eyes widened. You can feel them, John nodded. Not exactly feel. I notice patterns. Their movement, the way they breathe, the way they step. It's instinct. You'll develop it too. Suddenly, the Vorathi emerged from the shadows. There were more of them this time, moving with precision and speed. The Zelari froze for a moment, but John remained calm. Positions, he shouted. Remember what I taught you. The girls moved as instructed, blending with the forest, using shadows, crystals, and reflections to hide. John took the lead, drawing the Vorathi toward carefully set traps. Fallen crystal formations and narrow pathways slowed the creatures, giving the girls a chance to act. Sierra, inspired by John, struck with a crystal staff, disabling one of the Vorathi's energy weapons. Kale used the environment cleverly, causing a rockslide that separated two of the predators. Lyra attacked strategically, not blindly but with precision and planning. John watched, impressed. Good, you're learning fast. The battle was intense, but the Zelari began to see the difference between instinct and instinctive technology. Their training with John showed them that courage and quick thinking could overcome the strongest predator. When the last Vorathi fled, the group stood together, breathing heavily. Lyra looked at John with newfound respect. I underestimated humans, she admitted. You are extraordinary. John shook his head. I'm not extraordinary, I just never give up. Humans survive because we keep trying no matter the odds, Sierra smiled. It is not just skill, it is determination. Humans have something special. Kale nodded. Yes, something we cannot measure with science. John's eyes softened. And now you have it too. Courage, strategy, and trust, not just in me but in yourselves. The night passed without further incident, but the lessons remained. The Zelari began to see John not only as a protector but as a teacher and guide. They shared their food and energy reserves with him, and in return, he taught them survival strategies beyond anything they had imagined. The following days were filled with training and exploration. John showed them how to anticipate Vorathi attacks, how to use the terrain for defense, and how to move silently across the forest. He emphasized teamwork and trust, teaching the Zelari that strength alone could not protect them. One evening, as they rested near a glowing river, Lyra asked, "Captain John, why did you help us in the first place? You didn't have to." John looked at the glowing water, thinking, "Because someone had to, because it's right. Humans, we fight for others even when it's dangerous. We don't always think about glory or reward. We just act." Sierra's eyes widened. "You act for others, that is rare," John nodded. "Maybe, but it works." Kale leaned forward. "Your courage, it inspires us. We learned so much from you in such a short time. We admire humans." John smiled. "Good. Admiration is fine, but respect is earned. And you've earned it by learning and surviving." The bond between them grew stronger each day. The Zelari began to move more confidently, striking with precision and anticipating danger. They relied less on their technology and more on their instincts, guided by John's teachings. Yet danger was never far. The Vorathi were relentless. One morning, as the group approached a cliff overlooking a valley of glowing crystals, John sensed something immediately. "They are coming, I can feel it," he said, scanning the horizon. Lyra's heart raced. "How can you feel them again?" John smiled. "Not feel, observe, predict. Watch the signs." From the shadows of the valley, dozens of Vorathi emerged, their claws sparking with energy. This time there were more than before. The Zelari tensed, but John remained calm. "Stay close. Remember your training," he instructed. The battle began. John led the Zelari through the terrain, using every trick he had taught them. They ducked behind crystal formations, used reflections to confuse the Vorathi, and attacked strategically. The Zelari were no longer just survivors. They were fighters, coordinated, aware, and daring. Sierra struck with perfect timing, disarming a Vorathi. Kale created diversions that allowed Lyra to flank the enemies. And John, he moved like lightning, striking and dodging, turning the Vorathi's strength against them. Hours passed in a blur of action. The Vorathi, frustrated and confused by the humans' unpredictability, began to retreat. The Zelari cheered softly, their confidence growing with each success. Lyra turned to John. I don't know how to thank you. You've changed everything for us." John shook his head. "No thanks needed, just survive. Learn and remember, humans survive because we never give up." That night, as the stars shone above the glowing forest, the Zelari looked at John differently. He was no longer just a soldier. He was a teacher, a guide, and a symbol of courage. Sierra whispered, "Humans, maybe we judge them too quickly. They are not weak, they are amazing." John smiled, watching the glowing rivers reflect the starlight. "And now you know, strength isn't always about technology or size. It's about willpower, courage, and intelligence." The Zelari nodded, silently agreeing. For the first time they felt that with humans like John, even the greatest threats could be faced and survived. But even as they rested, John's eyes never left the forest. The Vorathi were still out there, and he knew the next challenge would be even greater. He would need the Zelari to be ready, not just to survive, but to fight alongside him as equals. And the Zelari were ready. They had learned from a human soldier that survival was more than strength or technology. It was courage, strategy, and heart. And with John, they had discovered that humans, though small and fragile-looking, could accomplish the impossible. The forest was quiet for now, but the Zelari knew that this was only the beginning of a larger journey. And they would face it together, led by the human who had saved them, and who had inspired them to become more than they ever thought possible. The Vorathi were relentless. The creatures' attacks had grown bolder, and now their strategy seemed clear. They were not just hunting, they were trying to capture the Zelari. Captain John and the alien girls had survived attacks before, but John knew that this time, the battle would demand more than courage. It would require full intelligence, planning, and teamwork. The group had reached the edge of the glowing crystal mountains, a labyrinth of jagged cliffs, tunnels, and caves. John studied the area carefully, noting the Vorathi's likely paths, the natural traps in the terrain, and the safest routes for both attack and escape. "This is where we end this," he said quietly, his voice firm. "We either stop them here or they will never stop coming." Lyra nodded. "We trust you, John. You've taught us well. We're ready." Sierra adjusted her energy staff. "We've trained under you and now we fight with you." John smiled slightly. "Good, stay sharp. Remember, intelligence beats brute force every time." They moved silently into the mountains. The Zelari, now more confident than ever, followed John's instructions perfectly. They ducked under glowing stalactites, avoided unstable rocks, and used reflective crystals to confuse any Vorathi scouts. For the first time, they felt like warriors, not just explorers. In a large cavern, the Vorathi waited. Dozens of creatures, larger and faster than before, had gathered. Their claws glowed with dangerous energy and their eyes burned with hunger. The Zelari gasped, but John stayed calm. "Remember what I taught you," he whispered. "Don't panic. Observe, predict. Use the environment." The battle began. John moved with incredible speed, ducking under a claw strike, rolling behind a crystal pillar, and luring the Vorathi into traps he had set moments before. The Zelari worked alongside him, striking with precision, dodging attacks, and confusing the predators. Lyra led a flanking maneuver. Using a narrow tunnel, she and Kale surprised a group of Vorathi, striking them with energy beams and crystal weapons. Sierra created a reflection trap, bouncing the Vorathi's energy claws back at them, stunning two of the creatures. John focused on the strongest Vorathi, the Alpha, a massive creature with armor-like scales and deadly speed. The Alpha roared, shaking the cavern, and charged at John. The human soldier didn't flinch. He dodged at the last second, causing the Alpha to crash into a crystal wall, shattering some of the glowing formations. The Zelari watched in awe. John was not just fighting. He was predicting, improvising, and using the environment like an extension of his own body. The Alpha tried to strike again, but John led it into a trap where a hanging crystal formation collapsed, pinning the creature temporarily. "This is our chance," John shouted to the girls. Lyra nodded and attacked with precision. Kale followed. Sierra coordinated from behind, providing support. Together, they overwhelmed the Alpha, which finally fell, defeated by teamwork, strategy, and human ingenuity. The remaining Vorathi hesitated, confused by the Alpha's defeat. John didn't give them a chance to regroup. He led a coordinated attack, using clever tricks, sliding down crystal slopes, setting reflective distractions, and funneling them into narrow passages where their size and speed became disadvantages. The Zelari fought with newfound confidence. They no longer panicked under pressure. They anticipated the Vorathi's moves, just as John had taught them. The predators began to retreat, one by one, until the cavern was silent except for the echoes of their own breathing. Lyra approached John, her violet eyes filled with admiration. You've done it. You saved us again." John shook his head. "No, we did it together," Sierra smiled. "Humans, we underestimated you. You are incredible." John laughed softly. "It's not about being incredible. It's about survival. Humans fight, adapt, and never give up. That's what makes us strong." Kale stepped forward. "You've taught us so much. Not just about fighting, but about courage, intelligence, and strategy. We will never forget it." John looked around the cavern at the glowing crystals, the stalactites, and the Zelari who now stood confidently beside him. "Good. Remember this feeling. You are capable of more than you know. Never rely only on technology or strength. Trust yourselves and you can overcome anything." As they rested in the cavern, Lyra reflected on everything that had happened. She had traveled the universe, studied countless species, and considered herself an expert. Yet humans, small and fragile-looking, had proven a power far beyond what she had imagined. "John," she said quietly, "humans, you are extraordinary. Your courage, your mind, it is something we never thought possible." John smiled humbly. "Extraordinary, maybe. But anyone can do what I do. You just have to train, think, and never give up. That's all it takes. The Zelari understood now. Humans were different not because of strength or speed, but because of their will to survive, to protect, and to act when others hesitate. That was their true power. The group stayed in the cavern for a few hours, tending to minor injuries and sharing stories. John told tales of Earth, of humans surviving against impossible odds, of ingenuity overcoming technology, of courage prevailing where logic failed. The Zelari listened intently, inspired not only by his words but by his presence. Soon, the time came to leave. The Vorathi were gone, at least for now, but the Zelari had learned a lesson they would never forget. With John leading them, they moved through the mountains confidently, prepared for any new challenges. As they reached the edge of a cliff overlooking the vast Zithara landscape, John paused. The twin moons reflected on the glowing rivers below. He looked at the Zelari girls. "You've done well," he said. "You've learned, adapted, and fought, and now you know what humans are capable of." Lyra stepped closer. "John, we are grateful. You've changed our lives. You've shown us that even in the greatest danger, courage and intelligence can triumph." John shook his head. "I didn't do it alone. You adapted, you learned, you fought. Humans can inspire, but it is your choice to act that makes the difference." Sierra smiled. "Then we will act, and we will remember that humans are not weak." "We underestimated them, but now we see your strength." Kale nodded. "Yes, and we will honor that. We will carry your lessons wherever we go." John felt a rare sense of peace. He had faced countless dangers, but this mission had shown him something unique. Humans could inspire not just through power, but through courage, intelligence, and heart. Suddenly, in the distance, a low growl echoed. John's instincts kicked in immediately. The Vorathi were not completely gone, but this time the Zelari did not panic. They were ready. They had learned. And now they would fight alongside a human as equals. John smiled faintly. "Looks like we have company. Ready?" Lyra, Sierra, and Kale nodded. Their energy weapons glowed, their movements sharp and precise. They had confidence now, confidence that came not from fear but from trust, knowledge, and the lessons John had taught them. Together, they faced the new threat. John's strategy, combined with the Zelari's skill and courage, turned the battle into a symphony of precision and intelligence. The Vorathi, strong and fast, were overwhelmed by the coordinated attacks, clever traps, and human ingenuity. At the end of the day, the Vorathi retreated, defeated and confused. John and the Zelari stood together, victorious. The glowing mountains of Zithara reflected their triumph. Lyra looked at John, her eyes shining. "Humanity, we have learned from the best. You have shown us the true power of courage, intelligence, and determination." John shrugged, smiling. "We're just survivors, but when we work together, anything is possible." The Zelari understood now. They had witnessed firsthand that even a single human, acting with courage and strategy, could turn the tide against impossible odds. That lesson would stay with them forever. As they descended from the mountains, the bond between them had grown unbreakable. The Zelari had not only survived, they had been transformed. They would carry John's lessons across the universe, a testament to the extraordinary potential of humans. And John, he walked alongside them, quietly proud, knowing that humanity's greatest strength was not just survival. It was the ability to inspire courage and hope in others, even across the stars. The stars above Zithara shone bright, and for the first time, the Zelari looked at humans not as simple creatures, but as beings capable of greatness beyond imagination. The universe was vast, filled with dangers and wonders alike, but with humans like John, courage and intelligence could light even the darkest corners.